That is the whole goal. How do I build trust with my potential client, and how do I set us both up for success in the first couple of minutes? And so it's going to be clunky. It's not going to be perfect, but I want you to keep going. So I usually say something along the lines of this. Thank you very much for meeting with me today. The goal for this conversation is for me to begin to understand some of the frustrations and concerns that you have in regards to your sales conversations. I want to see if I can be able to help you. If I can, that'll be great. We'll talk about what that investment looks like. And if I can't, I want to be able to give you some other resources to give you the support that you need. I'm going to just start with a few questions. Is that okay? We're going to talk about the goal, and we're going to talk about the outcome. Those are the things that have to happen in setting expectations. Let them know the goal, let them know the outcome. Those are it. If you do not share the investment, you're not moving the sale forward. And if you don't tell them that you're going to do that in the beginning of the sales conversation, it gets really awkward.
Welcome to another episode of Sippin' Matcha and helping you make more sales. I am your host, Scott Greening, and I'm privileged to have my wife join me, our resident sales expert and sales coach, Brooke Greening. And I just want to thank you, Brooke, for the influence this podcast is having, at least on our children. A fun tradition that we have in our family is that we often celebrate sales and new clients that you bring on as a sales coach with a celebratory milkshake. And I know this podcast is having...
Which our kids are going to be diabetic, actually.
Right. We may have to rework that a little bit. But I know that...
You're like, yes!
I know this episode, I know you're having an influence because our youngest, who we call Busy, she's 5. When it comes to milkshake time, she is genuinely... has to wrestle with, do I want like a chocolate, or for her, like strawberry is her favorite flavor of just anything, but, or do I want a matcha milkshake with mom? So if nothing else, this podcast is helping our 5-year-old appreciate matcha.
There we go. And our kids to understand sales are important.
Yes. Yep. There we go. So we've been having a great conversation over the past couple episodes on setting expectations. We talked about how setting expectations is letting people know what's going to be in the conversation, and then that allows them to kind of relax and engage, which is super important. And then last episode, we talked about the spectrum of examples from non-existent all the way to doing a really good job with that. And you can find the links to those previous episodes in the show notes. Today, we're going to focus on implementation and helping people put this to work in their business. So what encouragement would you give people as we get started?
Yes. So it is probably going to feel awkward in the beginning, and that is okay. When I'm working with my clients or helping them think through things, we don't really want scripts all the time, but there are certain sentences that we want to feel comfortable being able to say. And so it's gonna feel clunky. It's going to feel weird because you don't necessarily do this on a regular basis. And that's okay. I want you to lean into that and be able to do that. But more importantly, I just want you to continue to keep thinking about, okay, but do I have the right pieces in here in regards to being able to set the expectations that will be clear to my potential client and that will help us to be both set up for success? That is the whole goal. How do I build trust with my potential client, and how do I set us both up for success in the first couple of minutes? And so it's going to be clunky. It's not going to be perfect, but I want you to keep going.
Yeah, I know there's always, when we're learning like a new skill or trying something out, there's always like that awkward feeling of, I don't know how to do this well. I'm pretty sure I might not do it perfectly. I hear Brooke and she like these things just like flow out of her mouth seemingly very easily. That's not me, but it can be with just a little. You just got to get a couple of at-bats. You got to get a couple of practices, and then you'll start to feel comfortable with it, and you'll start to do that. And it may start where you have to basically memorize it and be ready, and then you can start to just respond. It'll start to sound a little more natural and all of those types of things. So just
And
jump in, try it out.
And as you're doing with what we're telling you to do in regards to these next 2 steps we're going to give you, then it will start to feel more authentic to you and your business. So yes, it's going to be clunky in the beginning, but then as you realize, oh, this is literally what I'm trying to say, it will start to flow and it will become easier. And that's our whole entire goal. So yes,
All right.
let's
So
dive into it.
towards the end of the last episode, you gave your sentence that you are a couple of sentences that you use in setting the expectations. Why don't you like give that out to us real quick and then tell us like there's 2 steps that basically that accomplishes to make it really simple. And so give us the sentence real quick, then give us the steps of where you're going.
So I usually say something along the lines of this. Thank you very much for meeting with me today. The goal for this conversation is for me to begin to understand some of the frustrations and concerns that you have in regards to your sales conversations. I want to see if I can be able to help you. If I can, that'll be great. We'll talk about what that investment looks like. And if I can't, I want to be able to give you some other resources to give you the support that you need. I'm going to just start with a few questions. Is that okay?
All right. So I know people were furiously taking notes and trying to get that down. You can go back and replay it or listen. We're going to go through it again in just a few minutes, a little slower, just to give you a chance. But really, it boils down to 2 big steps or movements that you're doing there in setting the expectation. So what are those, Brooke?
We're going to talk about the goal and we're going to talk about the outcome. Those are the things that have to happen in setting expectations. Let them know the goal, let them know the outcome. Those are it. And you'll notice when I'm saying it, it's specifically to our business. And that's what I'm going to encourage you to do as well. If you're an accountant, like, hey, what are some of the things you're facing in the accountant world right now? Like, we make it personalized to who we're talking to.
Yeah, and we're going to keep talking about it, but just to make it clear to differentiate, because you can maybe say, well, goal and outcome are sort of like synonyms, and that's true. But like the goal is understanding. So I want to understand, you said something like, I want to understand more of the frustrations that you're facing regarding sales or sales conversations. Like the goal is understanding what caused them to do this awful thing of getting on a sales call with somebody. And then the outcome then is what you're going to provide. So either you're going to let them know, hey, here's how you can work with me. Here's our next steps towards that. Or you're going to say, you know what? It's been great. Here are some resources. Here are some referrals. Here are some other people that I think could actually probably help you to solve the problem that we found that you actually have.
Yeah. And so another example is I'm getting ready to do a speaking engagement, and I do that. People reach out to me and they ask me to do speaking engagements. And so I wouldn't necessarily say, hey, I want to know the goal you have, like your frustrations of speakers. Sorry, I tripped over my words. But I would say, hey, I want to truly understand what it is that you're looking for in this next event and how I might be able to help. If we decide this is a great fit, that's awesome. We'll talk about what that investment looks like. If not, maybe I can give you some other resources as well. You're literally asking yourself, what is the goal in any of these sales conversations?
Great. So let's go back through on a little slower just pace. And if you want to pause and highlight like, oh, hey, this is why I'm saying this, that as you go through it, you can do that. If you're listening and you want to pull over the side of the road and write down, this is your warning. So she's going to go back through this.
All right. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. My goal is I want to learn about some of the frustrations that you're facing in regards to your business and specifically your sales conversations. I want to see if I can be able to help. And if I can, that's great. We'll talk about what that investment looks like. And if I can't, I want to be able to give you some resources that can be able to help you. I'm going to ask you a few questions. Is that all right?
All right. So how did we set the goal? Let's go back to your steps.
Yep.
Like, how did you set the goal in that?
I literally said my goal is to understand the frustrations that they're facing right now in their business and sales conversations. So for whoever is listening, we want to know, okay, are we going to talk about their frustrations, concerns they're facing in what? In your accounting, in your law practice, whatever it is that you do and that you help with, that's what we're bringing in. Like, where are you struggling in this area? That's the first piece. That is our goal. And that is the whole part of the service framework. It's not just a line for setting expectations. If you actually understand the problem that they're having, that's how we're able to continue to make more sales. It's not just a line. It's literally the whole entire service framework.
Yeah. And then the other part was like the setting the outcome or explaining the outcome. Where did you do it in your...
Yep. So in the outcome, we're going to say, see if I can help. If I can, great. We're going to talk about that investment. And if not, if I can't help you, then we're going to give you some other resources. So that's where we're setting the outcome. So they know, okay, Brooke's going to ask questions because she's trying to understand where I'm coming from and what's going on in my business. And I can expect that she's going to let me know what the investment is, if this is a good fit. And if it's not, she's going to help me in a different way. So everybody's going to win in this sales conversation. And we were able to do it in about 30 seconds for them to start to see that. So the goal, literally, what are we trying to accomplish in the conversation? That's to uncover their problems, frustrations, make it personal. The outcome is, I'm going to tell you about the investment if we feel like this is a good fit. And if it's not, then I'm going to give you other resources. That is the outcome. And then I always ask, can I ask you a few questions? Because now I'm taking it, I'm going to lead it, and we're going to start the conversation.
Yeah. Great. So I know that you've interacted with lots and lots of people at this point, and almost all of them have at least tweaked the start of their conversation after asking you. So one of the things as we work through these different parts of this framework that we're going to do is we're going to try to like tell some stories of that show the transformation that's helpful. And instead of we don't have the pixelated, blurry, like artificial voice from actual clients.
Right.
We're going to protect the innocent, and we're going to use, I don't know, we'll take my name. So we'll call this person Scott. And as we go through, you can tell us from your coaching experience, like how you've seen this play out with real people. And Scott will be our guinea pig to take the story and move us through.
Yeah. So this is the very first piece that we talk about. So we, in our sales lab, master classes, different things like that, this is the very first thing I'm always working with my clients because, like we said, it sets you up for success. And so this is usually a big piece where people are adapting to it immediately into their next sales conversation. So with one gentleman, he realized, because he wasn't actually telling them that they were going to talk about the investment, he wasn't setting the expectation at all. It was getting really awkward to move on to the next piece. So like in that situation, they were having like a master class, and then he offered to have a session with them. But in that session, he never set the expectation to tell them, I'm going to help you to know how you can work with me if that's what you would like to do. These are like very simple things that you can say in a conversation that then, like what Scott had talked about previously, it gives you that accountability to then actually say and to share the investment so that you can be able to move the sale forward. If you do not share the investment, you're not moving the sale forward. And if you don't tell them that you're going to do that in the beginning of the sales conversation, it gets really awkward. No one really knows exactly what to do. And it usually just ends that it was a great conversation. I'll call you, I'll send you a proposal in a week, and like you've lost all of the momentum. So for this particular client, he literally started making sales the very next day because he had never set the expectation before. And as soon as he started doing that, it was easier for him to then say what that investment was and for them to say yes to that on that call instead of it going forever and ever.
All right. I know Scott is very thankful, both this one and the...
He's doing quite well.
Right. So that's great. Just to remind people and let people know, this is part 1 of your service sales framework, and you have an assessment. If you're like going in, you're like, holy smokes, I didn't know there was even that much to like mess up in the first couple of minutes. Maybe taking the assessment might be a good idea. And you can do that at buildingmomentum.info/assessment. And it's really fun. Like maybe really fun is a bit of an oversell, but like we tried to keep it as light as possible while also being meaningful and all of that. If you compliment Brooke on her cheeky little like markers on the spectrum, she'd appreciate it. But I'd really encourage you to do that. The other thing as we wrap things up is, so we've just indicated, hey, we're moving to a new section, right? So whatever you end up saying for setting the expectations, you recommend ending with, is it all right if I ask you a few questions? And so that's where we're headed next. And we're actually going to talk about establishing rapport. And I like this because like your way of doing this is not reverting back to chit chat that might have happened before you did this. And so we'll just leave it there as a teaser. So come back and find out what real establishing rapport is as far as a sales conversation in a way that builds trust and helps you to do that. So that's where we're headed in the next episode.
Sounds great. We'll see you guys soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Enjoy that matcha or coffee, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.